Welcome again, everyone, to yet another episode of That Kingsville Podcast. Again, I am your host, Dave Hunt, and with me, as always, Kevin Black and Steve Ianson.
Sorry I'm late, guys. There was some detours I had to worry about.
A few
detours.
We've seen some cones. There's some signage posted.
Yeah.
Signage.
Yeah, well, I mean, the most important street in the entire town, Jasperson, is kind of a mess right now.
There's plenty of visibility.
But you've got a nice clear view of all the construction.
We went for the same joke. Just want to start this episode with a shout out to our very own sponsor, Kingsville Brewery, featuring refreshing premium beers, perfect for having a couple of pints with your pals. Crafted with natural, clean ingredients, their award-winning beer is available at select LCBO beer stores and grocery stores. Go online to their website, kingsvillebrewery.com, to order takeout at the tap house or beer delivered free in Essex County. Cheers to the everyday adventure. Thank you, Kingsville Brewery, for yet again another week of sponsorship. Thank you.
And we're just going to sit here and stare at the case of beer this time because last time it got out of control.
It is a delicious product, but we need to meter ourselves. So.
Clear heads.
So, yeah, we had a bit of an episode last week, huh?
So we talked about the medical building on Main Street. And to recap a little bit, Sebastian Schmorans, who is the lawyer representing the developer, was on. And we're not going to get into it too much more because that was an hour of it. And
go back and listen to
and you should go back and listen. Yeah. But one of the key things that Sebastian raised and some of the concerns from the developer's standpoint was that possibly there was some breakdowns in the way that the site plan had been handled at the town level, according to Sebastian. Yeah. So we figured we'd go to the source, and we're joined this week by Mayor Nelson Santos.
Hey.
Good day.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Mayor Santos. We're getting so big. We got some big talent coming in. Thank you.
We found a way to book this event.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's crazy. All these things.
I see you wore your black villain shirt, so that's...
Right. Well, the Dark Crusader.
Right. It's like Darth Vader of the town of Kingsville.
Yeah. The ominous noise. Yes. So yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining us on our wonderful 65th most popular podcast in politics and town gossip in all of Canada.
Amazing. Things are just going up.
Should. Yeah. We're at the bottom. nowhere but up for us.
Did you get a chance to hear the episode last week?
I did, actually. Yeah, it was good information. Good to hear updates, obviously, what's happening in the community, and to hear, obviously, the developer side and representation as to how everything played out at the end of the day.
So we have so many topics to talk about, so we don't want to spend too much time on this one, but there was a couple of key points that Sebastian was making on behalf of the developer, that there was a belief that there was possibly a breakdown in the process where the proposed second story was issued and had an approved building permit, and possibly that should have went back to a site plan amendment before that building permit had been issued.
Right.
So what's the thought?
So you go back to like any building permit in the municipality, you go through, especially new build. You have a site plan agreement that's in place that identifies basically all the details, where the building's going to go, the size of the buildings, location, setbacks, everything. During the initial approval, as everyone knows, the intention was presented publicly was a single story, and everything was located and identified based on that design. Somewhere along the line, as the developer, found interest and I think potential growth opportunities for his site, he identified his need to pursue a second story. That never came to council. That was something that was certainly not brought forward prior to a permit being issued. The site plan amendment did not come forward prior to the building permit being issued, and there was definitely a breakdown in the communications between departments as well. So that all came out in a public report at the municipal level at the council table. That was identified. We've made efforts and improvements in terms of the communications between departments and sign-offs for permits, especially with site plans. We wouldn't issue a permit without the site plan documents updated or in place. There were commitments along the way. What we found as part of the investigation and research identified that there were commitments made by the developer that they would provide and submit an updated site plan. And through those verbal, commitments and provisos that came forward, the building department at that time did sign off on a permit with the anticipation that the site plan agreement or documents would have been brought in line. That never happened, and then that's when all everything started hitting the
kerfuffle.
Right. And there's reason that we try to identify what's going where, and the public meetings are important because we had feedback at the time. Had we known from day one it would be a 2-story, council certainly would have reviewed things such as shadow impact and location of where that building would be and adjacent to the impact on the neighbors and certainly on the streetscape. That was all part and parcel of the original meeting. We didn't get that opportunity now, noting the change with the second story, and we've had to deal with it since then. It's been certainly a challenging time, and council and I think our municipal departments have improved in terms of ensuring those types of gaps don't happen again, but also the responsibility of the developer to ensure that all the paperwork is in line and not to be rushing anything out the door that's not ready.
Are there any ongoing legal lawsuits right now with that?
No, I mean, everything was kind of resolved with the additional approval of the final site plan with the changes. The request council made specific to ensure the windows were covered to provide for the privacy of the neighboring properties. Again, something we didn't have an opportunity to do. Was it necessary at the original approval?
So then the other point that Sebastian had made was that the site plan that was originally approved and then amended included the site plan for the condos in the back for phase 2 and phase 3. So basically now those, as far as Sebastian was concerned and the developer was concerned, the approval process as far as council is done, and now it's just up to issuing building permits for those. Is that what you understand too?
Right. So yeah, the site plan identifies what's permitted within the zoning. That's all confirmed and ready to go. They'd be able to issue permits based on that design. Now, if they change the design, lower it, change parking, that has to then come back for review. But in keeping with the submitted plans, that is set to go, and that is certainly a legitimate position. They're ready to go should they want to proceed.
And the gate for Woody Crest, is that entrance is, Sebastian wasn't sure.
Yeah.
We think there's a gate there that's not going to be that's not going to be always accessible. Do we know?
Right. So right now the existing plan identifies the future installation potentially. Should that plan and as we do a review of that area, it could very much be in the future. But right now, as it stands, there isn't a direct connection. It's there for emergency purposes.
So Steve, we don't have to monitor the drag strip.
No, we don't.
I don't know if you've heard. I'm moving into their neighborhood, so I'm just trying to get acclimated with that side of the hood. So.
On the raceway.
The raceway, yes.
Yeah.
And I got the car tuned up just nice and loud for you.
Oh,
so
awesome. I love it when loud vehicles drive by my house. It's great.
Hey, you got 3 months of just construction equipment, so what do you want?
My house is already shaking. Honestly, there's a whole lot more involved with that development, but at this point in time, it's approved. It's basically done. And like you said, Nelson, the town has identified that there may have been some issues and has worked to correct those. In my opinion, I think it's done.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the better parts that, again, you learn from those experiences and certainly the communication between building, planning, the municipal departments has certainly increased. We've added some new innovation as well in terms of being able to sign off, and get the documents electronically to each member. That's, within the department heads. So we are definitely more connected. We're looking at even additional improvements in terms of documentation, and permits, of course, have now been double signed. So a permit is not official till you get that's the second signature from planning and the building department.
So now that area, along with some of the neighboring properties, became part of the interim control bylaw that was part of council notes this week and part of what was approved this week at council. So talk a bit about that. What does, and I know, Dave, this is kind of bleeding into the council notes.
Bleeding
for this
into
week.
council notes. Council notes is suspended because we happen to have the mayor here.
But what does that mean? And then because we're talking about the medical building first, how does that impact the site plan that's already there? Because like you just said, basically that one's done other than building permits. So now that site is part of this interim control bylaw. So what happens now?
Okay. Well, they're part of the study area. So just to be clear, so that area, while it has an existing site plan that's been approved and is basically in bylaw form, so they're ready to go. The study area itself includes obviously the current high school location, their property, the rear properties of 140 where there's the current development happening, and then another vacant parcel of land between Migration Hall and Spruce Street. There's actually a laneway there plus some acreage, which potentially, could serve to help deflect traffic and traffic flow in that area off of Main Street for future development. So part of the study area is to look at that. Like, we don't have that answer today. The secondary plan for that study area will identify how can we, once the school does transition and hopefully the municipality is able to follow through with its planning in terms of securing like Migration Hall, securing the high school property itself, and then becoming almost a developer in its own and creating a future plan for, what kind of housing do we want to bring in there to help meet the needs that we're hearing from the public, right? Affordable housing, senior kind of housing development, attainable housing, a range of homes that I think we're missing right now. So that plan was approved last night unanimously. Everyone is supportive of getting that. What's it going to look like in that area? It's a significant part of the community. Everyone recognizes that. Being born and raised in Kingsville, Main Street is your route, right? Like, we know. So it's critical, right? Like, I think there's an acknowledgement that current 4-lane access is off the high school is not something you want to maintain in the future. So as part of that all-encompassing secondary plan, that's the work we're going to do. Now, in terms of the interim control bylaw, that limits the ability of the properties that have no plans at this point. So what council approved last night was the front portion of 195 Main Street East, which is the property that abuts the 25 acres of residential future subdivision, but the frontage of that is now under interim control bylaw, which means nothing can happen for a year while the study is ongoing. So we can determine what linkages would that property have with the balance of the subdivision and onto Main Street. So that's under control. The only other property that was excluded was basically 190 Main Street, which is where they currently have the site plan agreements in place for future development. However, because of the potential linkages with the future of the high school lands and whatever development that is, and the neighboring properties, there is that potential to create a little mini route of traffic for whatever is being developed there to help compensate or reduce the impact on Main Street. So that's what the study is going to bring out over the course of the year, and that'll all be public, process. We'll have an opportunity to have, input, provide updates as to where that secondary plan is. It becomes part of the official plan that the municipality will want to introduce for future development. So then anyone that comes in, say the municipality is successful, for example, on the high school lands, once they become declared surplus, we can then identify here's proposals, and we'll go out to potential private interest to see what kind of proposal they meet with our goals for meeting affordable housing, and we'll partner with whoever we can in terms of the housing authority, Windsor Essex.
What makes sense for us at future
time.
needs at that time. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So being a part of the Main Street Development Committee, I had a lot of involvement with regards to the presentation that you'll be receiving at council, I believe, next session, if I remember correctly. My dates don't matter anymore, days, whatever it is. But, there's a lot of voiced concerns about things like traffic control and moderation, facade design, things of that nature. So there is a lot of passionate people within the town of Kingsville that are very concerned with that. So the interim control bylaw will allow Kingsville to continue to build upon this Main Street Development Committee study and further get a better approach towards how to use these lands. Now, that is not the entire sector of the study area. So we had a little bit of a challenge with it bleeding into the downtown core as well. So Kingsville Public School also now becomes a surplus property as well. Is this something that the municipality or the council is considering as well to create an interim control for those properties in that surrounding area?
Right. So at this time, we've also identified the Kingsville Public School lands as a property of interest for the municipality. So again, once they become declared surplus, we hope to be able to put in a bid that is satisfactory to the legislation of the province that says you have to, pay market value versus the traditional $1.
Leamington set a nice precedent for us last year, right? They purchased the high school and was a Mill Street Public School for $1.7 million, if I remember correctly. So it's not a bad precedent to be set. So it gives you a bit of a budget line item to target when comes time for budget deliberations.
Right. So
a dollar would be nice.
$1 would be great. I think you got a loony. You want to buy a school?
I thought that was
taxpayers' dollars to help build it, and they want taxpayers' dollars to buy it back.
Well,
It's stupid.
well, yeah. But then again, the bill to build a new school is 20 some odd million or 40 some odd $1 million. That's also taxpayer money. So if they can,
I guess I'm wrong. I thought the dollar only applied to they had to offer it to a different board for $1, but like you and I couldn't just buy it for $1, or the town
correct,
couldn't.
yeah.
I think it was strictly.
But the town gets first right to purchase.
The town,
right?
school board, and other government agencies have the first right to bid
Right.
on it before it becomes open publicly, once it's declared surplus.
that's the Education Act of Ontario. I did some research. Just saying. Anyway.
Yeah. And the new regulation, which referred and deferred the $1 allocation to now value.
There was a lot of developers in Toronto that were taking advantage of some surplus in bigger metropolitan areas, which is probably why they wanted to get some more money for it. Anyway,
So how is this going to work then to the study? So is that something the town does internally? Do you go and hire a consultant? Is it an engineer? Do you create a committee? How does that work?
Yep. So those are the next steps, briefly touched upon during the report last night from our manager of planning. He did identify the need to potentially build up our resources. So hiring potentially a consultant that would come forward to put an outline in terms of timelines, expectations for what this study will bring forward. Again, public input. The first round of public input, put a draft together, do another round of input with council and the municipality, and go from there. So the intent is to have this done within a year. That's the term of the interim control bylaw. Then council can then determine, is this the secondary plan we want to add to our official plan. We have to circulate all the agencies, of course, Conservation Authority, County of Essex, all the ministries, so that we're in keeping with provincial policy at the end of the day. And they also have to do the sign off when we submit the final package.
So then when it comes forward, then what happens they'll bring forward basically a set of drawings, I would assume, a set of priorities, some sort of plan. So then how do you go to the landowners and say, okay, now this is what we're going to allow you to do on the property. This is what we want to see. Mm-hmm. How are you able to enforce that?
Right. So it goes to official plan language is basically the strongest vision and I think description of what properties can be used for. So we get to the zoning of the properties, exactly what types of, again, residential, commercial, that's all outlined. So similar to the recent update we did with the official plan late last year, so November, December, we had policy language. So we added, greenhouse policy for new development of greenhouses. What are the requirements around there? That's what this policy would also outline, saying, okay, here's your limitations. You can go 2 stories high. You have to be set back from this property to this degree. We're limiting your access onto Main Street. You have to have a secondary outlet. It would outline all of those details. So in essence, it is the future planning for that area. We can introduce, streetscape kind of opportunities to maintain integrity of a theme, not dissimilar to how Niagara-on-the-Lake did it for their core. It's an opportunity to now identify those key pieces. And that's when we reflect back to the hard work that many members of the Main Street Committee have done.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Recognition.
The research that they put in, absolutely. I mean, that's... Well, you give kudos to, and credit where it's due. And
we had a good selection of people that did a lot of hard work because of passion, right? We all care about Kingsville.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else in development we want to talk about? We've done 7 episodes on development.
Well, it's a hot button topic, right? Kingsville's in transition, and a lot of people, like you're sentimental and you want to keep one foot in the comfort zone of what was, and then when change happens and it's inevitable, towns grow and evolve, and people move in who aren't from here and have new ideas and have new potential growth opportunities and development opportunities, and when those are met, that don't necessarily coincide with the fundamentals certain individuals feel, you get that clash, right? And a lot of people throw barbs at other individuals that aren't necessarily responsible for any of this, but it's, it becomes a bit of a, nasty playground of, an environment. So it's, we're hoping that by us doing this podcast, and if our 8 listeners haven't, appreciated or realized, we're trying to present somewhat of the neutral point of view. And we appreciate you coming in and discussing administration or council and administration's point on a lot of these issues. So
no, for sure. Yeah. And we talk about the future of development, and we talk about the business retention, the expansion. We want to see our local businesses thrive and giving them opportunity to grow. And we've seen some great examples of, long-standing businesses now at that stage being able to grow and expand and hire more people. That's what we want. We want a healthy community. You need some progress. You need some growth. And these are kind of the rewards we're seeing with businesses reinvesting in a community that they're proud of and they're familiar with.
And these strategic studies and plans are what give us the foundation in order to make those next stages and steps for planned growth. So,
Well, and you just had a couple of business openings on Saturday, which is.
Did anyone get near one of them?
So a friend of mine brought me 3 Sundays.
Would they wait in line
on a
for
Saturday?
3 days?
On Saturday. Believe it or not.
You got
Sundays
three.
Saturday?
I apologize.
Hey-o.
This is the bell. This bell is for dad jokes. I don't have any. They do, and it's whether or not I'm fast.
You processed the joke.
Tim waited an hour in line at the new bakery.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Was it worth the dough?
No.
These jokes are my bread and butter, Dave.
That one gets that. There you go. See, we're in a stride. Mayor Santos, you
do not shun me. Anyway,
I'm scenting some sourdough.
Okay, I'm just going to recuse myself.
Well, this was Mondays back at the Reporter, back and forth. But actually, was it worth it? Absolutely,
yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
it was, yeah.
Now we're rolling. I had to slide one in. I felt like I was being left out.
That's solid.
Speaking of, that's a great segue, Steve. Speaking of the Reporter, so the year came up.
It was
the year
just
came
last
up
week.
Last edition, yeah.
We happen to have a couple of individuals that were instrumental with the newspaper in the town of Kingsville for at least 20 years. One for 29. Look at that memory on this guy. I think you said it once, and I remembered that. But so yeah, now that we're a year after post-mortem, what can we discuss? What feelings of anger, anguish, relief do you guys have? Right, you were coworkers for a long time.
That was the relief right there.
Oh.
No.
Right, I mean the jabs in the shoulders and the ribs.
It was a small office.
I know he misses that. Yeah.
No, I don't know. There was a sense of relief in that, and we talked about this. We all knew it could one day happen when being owned by Post Media, especially with the previous closures. I think when the news came, and I wasn't part of the conference call, I was unavailable.
Failed out again on us.
Yeah.
He had something to cover. There was a picture I had to take of some kids.
Yeah, there you go. No, basically, I got a phone call.
It was a basketball tournament at the high school.
Come on. Yeah. No, I received a phone call and saying the next edition was going to be our last. And I understand it was COVID and people didn't want to interact, but one of the most disappointing things for me was that phone call was the last correspondence we received at all from anyone from Post Media other than HR. So I thought maybe someone would come out and at the very least just say, thanks for all your work for the past 29 years, Nelson. No flowers or anything, just thank you. Here's what I need you to do as far as cleaning out the office. There was nothing. It was on the 4 employees at the time to basically clean out their desks and clean out the office. And we're talking hard copies of the newspaper from the past 130 years. We had at least one copy of every edition. We had rolls of microfiche. We had photographs, negatives of prior to 2000, 2001 was when we really started getting into digital. And over the course of 3 days, we cleaned out the office, and Nelson can speak better to who took everything. But people really, we had some good people step in and say, we'll take this and we'll look after that
for these important documents.
And to me, that was the hardest part. It wasn't that I had been relieved of a job.
It's a lot of history.
It was.
It's the historical record of the town.
Exactly. And people who, I mean, the number of people that would still come up to you and say, there's digital media and all this and that. But I love sitting down every week with my reporter. I was at Zares a couple of weeks ago and bumped into Doug Daniels. And Doug said to me then, I miss it. And I haven't had much of that, to be honest.
Yeah, the two of you were fixtures around town for every event.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't just the Migration Fest. It was, Mayor Santos or Nelson taking pictures, whatever event it was. Or Steve, you were covering my kids' events at the public school, right? Like it was
kids, little kids, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds knew me as the reporter guy, which was fun.
Yeah.
And then they grow up and they're like, "Can I be athlete of the week?" Well, what have you done? I ran
how
out.
much money you got.
Yeah.
We were telling the story of the kids in the community and the families, people getting to know each other. That's how we kept the close-knit feature of what Kingsville was. And it's a void for sure to not be able to, whether it's a dance recital or it's hockey tournaments or it's talking about the good neighbors story or good news story about neighbors helping neighbors. Getting that messaging out and the stories out, I think we're part and parcel of what Kingsville Reporter was known for. The good news stories, but also not afraid to talk about, when there was, sadness or, some kind of, disappointment in the community. We covered it all.
Well, I think the some of what we're starting to see on social media really started to grow when the reporter was gone, because there really isn't now that constant, always there source of truth of what's happening in the town anymore. There's no way that someone can say, "Well, are you sure? Like, is that what it said in the paper?"
Yeah, let me check the reporter.
Right.
How many times did you reference like, "Oh, I read it in the Porter. Hang on, let me grab it." Right? It wasn't just a publication to tell us the good news. It was also a point of reference for what we were experiencing in town.
I mean, I don't even know when the Robins are here. Like, am I sure that was a Robin?
Does. Leah, just thank you for so many years. So many years. But, those were just the little thing, the bygone days, right? Reading through the years of record. And, I'm at the age now where I'd be appearing in the 25 years plus. Because I moved here.
You were looking forward to it.
I was. And it's stolen from me. Stephen, this is why I've said, go to the archives. Bygone days.
I can't go to the archives right now.
I know. Well, it's close.
But I want to.
Yeah, well, maybe we can put in a curbside pickup for the entire milk crate.
Well, I'll go through and I'll just take a bunch of pictures of previous editions and I'll start firing them off.
But given the times, there is room for that document, for a newspaper that represents your community, something that people can pick up and bring back. Pandemic's a tough time to try to restore any of that kind of essence, but there is spirit. I hear it from residents all the time, community members that miss the paper, that want to be able to support a newspaper in the town that they can refer to. It's there.
It's a big economic situation as well, right? A printing press is not a cheap piece of equipment. And, in order to have the printing capabilities and distribution and advertising revenue, we tossed out ideas about how to create it in a grassroots kind of scenario. And it's a very detailed, expensive undertaking. So would I be a subscriber to a new newspaper? Absolutely, right? Because I value what that can provide in town. It's just financially, there has to be the right entity.
Well, and then if the paper comes back, we can talk to Gary and get him to start making cassette tapes so we could mail them out with the paper.
Gary. We could start with LPs if you got a press.
We'll get a record press.
Flexi discs, right? Remember what a flexi disc is, guys? Nobody?
Floppy drives.
No. A record flexi disc. Those are the ones you got in magazines.
Oh.
Yeah. Records that you actually got in a magazine. See,
they'd work once until you rubbed them too hard.
Right. Basically, because it was like plastic
flimsy
wrap.
Vinyl. Yeah.
But it was only intended to be a free promo.
Right.
That's how old it. Moving on.
So
Radio for One.
I had a career of that.
Yeah.
Back to a more serious topic. Do we want to talk more? Did we miss anything on the reporter? Do you guys want to expand on anything? Yeah. I didn't give you an opportunity.
No,
so
I just think the best story out of it is that we were able to preserve, I think, the history of the paper. And again, partnerships with the University of Windsor that are able to pick up editions, and they'll be able to record them for all time. Support from obviously our Kingsville archives, who took thousands of photos, from us that were taken as part of the coverage, and the binders and binders of negatives when we used to do the darkroom processing, right? So I can't tell you the weekends we spent doing, processing and understanding that and seeing the transition. So that was good.
Let's just hope the entities are valuing it as much as we all do, and it's preserved for future audience and future reference, as long as there's anyone asking for it. So,
Greenhouses. They were mentioned briefly. So, I don't want to talk about lighting in greenhouses at all.
I think everyone wants to talk about greenhouses and lighting.
Can we have a quick discussion about the pot busts of the last week or two? Because I think a lot of what was hearsay around town, rumors around town, what people just kind of understood was happening in some of these smaller greenhouses. Nelson, you've been talking about it for years, since those smaller class licenses for growing pot came out. Now we're starting to see the repercussions, the fire bombings, the retribution, the illegal, and then the large scale busts that are happening. This is something that's been on your radar, I know, for a while. So at first, I'm sure you're not shocked.
No, the undercurrent's always been there. From the time when you look at how the government rolled out how they do Part 1s versus the designated grower Part 2s, which aren't as restrictive. So when they don't give municipalities, for example, and I've said it from day one, we know when the Part 1 growers are coming in for the commercial cannabis because they give us notice, they're required to send us, the municipality, a registered letter saying they're interested in producing, growing, and it outlines everything. Part 2s just popped up. There was no notice or indication, required or approvals from the municipality. There's talk that they're supposed to meet, municipal requirements, but there's no action or check mark that they need to make to ensure they get a sign off from the municipality. So when they started popping up, 1, 2, 6, a couple dozen now, that we're just identifying where they are. And usually the indicator, sadly, is the fact that they're putting up fencing with barbed wire on top. And that's the only indication we get as a municipality. Well, grow lights come after, but typically the first sign is the barbed wire security that goes in. And we've made that known to the province, to the federal government from day one. The feds have actually started to recognize a lot of these concerns because they're being raised by police forces across Ontario, not just here. But there's been that element of how are they being monitored? Where is the oversight on them? And we found there's none, like it's minimal, other than complaints that we've asked residents, please call, file it, email, every single thing so that at least it's on their radar and they can't dismiss it. So we've been doing that for better part of 3 years. And we're seeing now that a lot of our concerns, what we see is the police rates, but we also don't see the other impacts on municipalities. Like when we talk about what's the land look like, are they following, environmental causes? So we're investigating those. They're not following fire codes. So, on top of the police raids you're talking about, we have 17 to 25 other offenses under the fire code that our officers, our inspectors have had to issue the tickets as well. That's not all covered. So it's a significant draw on our resources, time, energy, and certainly the risk, because we don't necessarily know what we're getting into, when we're responding. So that's why you're seeing the multi-forces. You're seeing the police, and give them kudos for continuing to track it. They have had these types of patrols on constantly, whether it's just minimal, surveillance, more in-depth, work and coverage. I give them credit for doing what they do and relying on support from other services as well. And that's what we've been trying to tell the province and the feds. This is something that cannot just be overlooked. You need to change how the regulations are. You need to give municipalities a fair shake and allow the residents to be able to know what's coming in the community and give us an opportunity to regulate in some form. Again, setbacks, limitations, inspections. Where are they, right?
Now you also sit on the police board. Chair.
Yep.
Chair. So first of all, and in your role as chair of police board as well, are we at a point, have the OPP raised any issues at police board where this could start becoming a safety concern for residents? There's obviously there's major crime, there's organized crime that are part of what's happening in some of these, potentially. All alleged, obviously, because we're still talking about charges and not convictions. But is there any concern for the greater public?
I think at all times. I think that's been their message that they provided in terms of if no one is given the full details of, again, there's two different pieces of legislation that are at play here. Yes, but for Part 2s, that right to grow has almost circumvented the right for the protection. And that's the concern that police have certainly raised. And it's across the province. So there is extra policing, extra surveillance that comes with those Part 2s. We've asked the federal government to do more inspections, not just e-inspections, over online inspections. So they've created basically they currently are going through, and I believe it ends this week, is requesting consultations from the public and agencies as to how to best change the process. And I know the municipalities submitting some. I've submitted one, personally, in terms of what we've seen and the risks that are being posed for our municipality, both in services and the sense of community.
Now, and obviously, you can't talk about active investigations. You shouldn't. But when these are being investigated,
is he involved in them?
Well, no, but at the police board, there would be.
I know.
Hey, I'm trying to find some news.
Don't derail the journalist, Dave. Don't derail the journalist.
I have a question.
He's prodding.
I want to know.
Go. Ask the question.
Our agents, our outside OPP resources, are they the ones that are coming in to help here, or is it a lot of our local guys that are being the ones that are forced to be doing these investigations?
Well, I think.
Sorry, Steve, I just totally stole your question.
No, you didn't. But maybe if I can just elaborate further.
Absolutely,
I know one of the benefits of having the OPP police in Kingsville is that they're able to draw on all the resources across the province as part of an all-encompassing thing. And I believe it's all part of the contract. Tying into your question, I was going to simply ask, is there a need for an increase in officers in Kingsville? And because I know, the budget comes every year from the OPP, and is that something that's maybe being considered? But obviously tackle Kevin's side of it first.
Well, certainly the access to special forces comes hand in hand with the OPP service. So recognizing these are cross jurisdictions as well. So you mean big cities, small urban towns, whether it's Essex County, Norfolk County, like you name it, these forces are coming together to get it done and provide that protection, and they're collaborating. So that's a given. I think overall, when we start seeing the increased enforcement, which is based on all these investigations and ongoing surveillance, it may call for more officers, but again, that's going to be coming from the provincial level, not necessarily dedicated to the municipalities. The new funding formula protects municipalities from those increases, but it also identifies under the Act that there is sufficient enforcement on the ground at the street level to protect municipalities. So that level is identified in a vague reference or language in the Act, but it's showing for the protection for the municipality is identified.
So just so people are aware, what is the determination for how many officers is Kingsville allocated? Is it crime rate? Is it population? Is it a combination of both? Because, I mean, if they're targeting a lot of resources to this sector, there's still going to be, unfortunately, car accidents. There's still going to be other areas the police are going to be required. So, I mean, is the potential there that we could be under-policed in other areas because of this? Or, again, is that sort of the ability to draw from other areas sort of covering that?
Well, certainly the regional coverage addresses that, especially when there's a significant incident that's I guess underway or being responded to immediately. So there is always backup and support for officers and for the community in that essence. But as annually we report on how many incidents or how many calls do we receive in the municipality. That triggers a level of what kind of response we need in terms of coverage. So that's kind of already embedded in the billing and the formula that they put in place. The growth of a municipality as well. So they look at how many households year over year, and they start seeing increases. Not only do they charge us for every household, but then they identify what it would be the appropriate level of service to provide for that size of municipality.
Okay. I just know back in the reporter days, I did an overnight ride along with an OPP officer, and there was
Ride along?
Yeah.
Steve, were you up to no good and you're trying to just handcuff this?
I went into the
Ride along.
the OPP station around 10:30 on a Saturday night. Signed my waiver. They gave me the bulletproof vest. And, oh yeah, and
were you like lead man into like a raid?
It was Constable Crilly at the
skinny
time,
guy in
and
front.
Right. Or the times we do the patrols for speeders, and we're actually targeted, and they took us with us.
Well, I think we were on the road till about 4:30, and there was an incident, not a huge incident, but they had to draw, and I don't know that Leamington was OPP at the time, but I know a couple of officers ended up coming in from Lakeshore because Kingsville required it. So I kind of saw firsthand how the camaraderie and teamwork came together.
So what was the call? What'd you get to see?
I told you it wasn't anything major. There was an incident involving, I don't know if it was a bit of a fight or something. It was a union across from...
Nope. Someplace in Kingsville.
Union area, I can say
Union
that.
area.
Would you call it a kerfuffle?
We can call it a kerfuffle.
I used it already today, kerfuffle. It's very descriptive. But that's real news. You didn't do real news.
I didn't. No.
Those boys did real news.
I did not do a ride along.
No ride along for Kevin.
I accidentally walked into the middle of a standoff, but I never.
Was that when the sirens went off unexpectedly that one night when you were cruising with them? You just wanted to flip the switch?
Can I please push the button?
Oh, I want to see the lights.
But actually, on the way to the kerfuffle, the officer was actually in the process of pulling someone over, got radioed to attend to the kerfuffle, and off we went. And that he's just like, well, lucky day for that person. Off we go.
Pardon us, we need to attend to some real policing. So, yeah, no, we got
an adrenaline rush.
We got some stuff going on in Kingsville. Like this is a hopping town. Like
Hopping town.
Mayor Santos.
Would you say it's on fire?
You're supposed to take the high road.
Oh. Oh man,
You could say that
we're getting into the weeds.
You could say the town's going to pot.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start taking money in order to increase the amount of dad jokes we have for every episode.
To be blunt.
Oh, it's like getting shot out of a cannon.
My finger hurts so bad from this button. So bad. Gary, can we get like a protective layer on this button?
No, what you need is one of those thumb things.
Yeah.
Like
Just have the Doobie Brothers play in the background.
Oh, Mayor Santos, I apologize, but you lived through this for 20 some odd years.
We wore that out, I think, 3 times in a couple decades.
It's a dead goose now. Going back to my original statement, we got some things that are hopefully planned to happen in the town of Kingsville. Last year, with the COVID regulations and whatnot, it was a rapid arrangement in order to host Open Streets. It was a BIA event last year.
Open Streets? What's that?
Well, Open Streets?
I don't know if I heard of that.
Open Streets. Well, that's when we close off the downtown core and everybody goes in the open streets. Closed streets, closed streets. Kevin's got this debate. Why is it open streets? It's closed streets.
Yeah, why is it open streets? You're closing the streets.
It's open to pedestrians.
I mean, it doesn't sound as fun. Like,
No.
I don't know if I'd go out of my way to go to closed streets.
Branding, Kevin. So this year, it is the intent of the town of Kingsville to facilitate this event again, but in whatever conditions that the current pandemic, if you haven't heard about it already, has allowable. So, I'm also a member of the Open Streets Committee because I have my roots in economic development and feel that this is a very important thing to have for the town of Kingsville. But Mayor Santos, given the amount of different things that we have within the community, the Folk Festival and now with Highland Games and Migration Festival and whatnot, where do you see the future of Open Streets, and can you elaborate a little bit more on what the town's involvement is with hosting it this year?
Oh, sure. Well, obviously we recognize, our community is a destination town. It's a tourism draw. It brings people from across the region and beyond to come experience what we have, what we're fortunate to have in our community. We got a great, strong, business community that works together, collaborates together, partners, doesn't compete against each other necessarily, but when it comes to bringing ideas to the table, they're like first in line. They want to find a way to bring back some sense of not just community that they're used to, but the normalcy, like getting people together, socializing, identifying, some of the greatest assets we have, for whether it's food, heritage, history in our community. We have it happening within our corridors, and Open Streets is an opportunity to bring that together, give that essence of here's the great foods, here's the entertainment and heritage and arts and culture that we can help bring in one area, open it up, within that area and make it safe. The pandemic has certainly created this big challenge for us as to what level can we do. Last year was a survival mechanism to allow for restaurants to have some kind of business. I mean, the language right now is you can't even have patios. So that really puts all kinds of planning for, Open Streets to the zero. Right. Until we can have the dining establishment. But the idea is to get what makes Kingsville tick showcased, put them in the spotlight. The downtown core, the main streets opportunity there is a case in point of what makes Kingsville unique and special. So that's what we're hoping the Open Streets will be able to evolve and stage into, I think, a full-blown draw for business, for tourism, and certainly for residents to appreciate what we have.
So the town now is managing instead of the BIA, right?
Correct. Yeah. So between our staff and the volunteers on the committee that are helping shape, what are the levels of pandemic service that Open Streets can do, that'll be coming forward. With any anticipated change in moving of the goalposts for what the pandemic stage is at, the committee I know is working hard to identify what they can do and what they can't do. Staff is working alongside with that to identify how do we manage for that, working to bring on a coordinator specifically dedicated to that kind of operation so the details can be worked on every week, because I believe it's going to be evolving weekly at that point.
We've tentatively planned according to the color scheme that we were operating under. When was the last time we were a color?
November? December?
Was it really? Oh
December,
my gosh. Yeah. We've been so gray for so long. I just want to see a rainbow. I don't want to see a rainbow. But yeah, we've been planning according to exactly like you said, whatever we can do within the guidelines that the province and the feds have laid out with regards to how we can interact, what events we can have. But to further elaborate on the inclusion, this year's event is intended to include all businesses from the town of Kingsville rather than just the downtown core of those business locations. So as long as the province will allow us to convene en masse with whatever protection and precautionary measures, any business that's within this municipality, this town of Kingsville, can apply to be a part of that. So, opening up those doors, opening up those boundaries in order for inclusion, I think is the best way that we can celebrate what Kingsville is, rather than just it being what was perceived last year as just a restaurant-only event. Did give a lot of people a bad taste in their mouth, along with also closing down the downtown core for the entire weekend. This year's event is proposed at just Saturdays at this time. So, being able to get other independent business owners or factions from outside of the downtown core, I think, is also a very important thing as we transition to whatever post-pandemic Kingsville looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at, how we had to respond last year, kind of like as quickly as possible, to now being able to plan it, stage it, incorporate everyone that, has that Kingsville label, we're bringing them together. And that's I think the bonus of this year. We've listened to the residents' concerns along, having closed the main streets for a long time. It had impact on even businesses there because of the closures. I think the 1 day a week proposal this year tries to balance that out and provide, I think, an overall experience that can be acceptable for everyone.
So basically now we're just waiting. Yeah. Because you can't do anything at the moment.
So this week is scheduled for 19th of June to be the first Saturday, and it's supposed to be every Saturday, scheduled at least for every Saturday, weather permitting, all the way through till the weekend after Labor Day, I believe was the time frame. So yeah, obviously if the province hasn't given us the green light to proceed in that type of a faction, it's postponed indefinitely. So the planning is there just as Mayor Santos said, if we have to react quickly, the event as it's been organized will take place.
And anything else for open streets? I was going to change.
No.
Segue.
We're
Quick
wrong.
segue.
Yeah,
Segue.
You can ride a Segway.
I can't.
No. It's quite difficult.
I think I'm going. That's
difficult.
a hard face plant. The one thing that you've been vocal on, speaking of pandemic, on the on social media is the fact that the fields are still closed. Have you heard any movement from the province whatsoever?
None. I'm hearing there may be some relaxations of facilities that can open by the end of, maybe we'll hear something on Friday, end of the week, typically, to give us, I think, that release that, we need to allow for some activity. We've certainly been lobbying for activities such as, tennis and pickleball and baseball and within the parameters that, COVID allows, right? The protocols that, Soccer Ontario has put in place, Baseball Ontario, they have all taken it very responsibly upon them, and they're willing to work within those parameters to give kids an opportunity, adults an opportunity to get active. And I think that's the push we're still providing. The health experts are on our side in terms of, how this activity is provides more benefit, mental health, physical, you name it. Certainly helps parents to have kids be able to do something else other than e-learning. But
get outside and use some energy.
Run.
Yeah, so we're definitely eager. I mean, my last conversation with Premier Ford was Friday. We had a call and we spoke about the health of communities. And every meeting, whether we've had a joint meeting with all the mayors in Ontario over a Zoom call or the one-on-ones, we've identified the need for this opportunity to open up the sports fields and do it safely. And we've provided new signs. We changed signs, ask our managers. They've become sign creators and designers on the fly, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And we've been able to put that into play. When that announcement came, 3 weeks ago now, 4 weeks ago now, it was unfortunate because we had just done a whole new review of, what's allowed. We were just communicating that with the public. And then within 20 minutes, that all got shut down.
So you talked to Premier Ford at 4 o'clock on Friday and he finally comes to the phone at 6:30?
Sometimes there are delays. So expect my call between 4:45 and
7 at night.
1 o'clock
Right.
conference call. Yeah.
Quick hits going still. Construction, obviously, we were joking about it, but next phase on Jasperson. Road 2 looks like got rolling as well.
That leads into council news.
Council news!
Council news! Yes, council met yesterday and had some developments happening. This is my reporter voice.
It's exactly how they said.
That is exactly. You would know. You perfected it. But yeah, above and beyond.
Mainly sunny today with a high reaching 15 or 59. Right now in Kingsville.
listen to that tone.
Such professionals. I
Sounds
sound
like my
such...
car radio.
I know that from somewhere. So yeah, just in brief, what council, and actually I have to commend administration. There's council minutes posted on the website. Woo! All the way up to the April 26th meeting. Thank you. Now we have a direct reference, so we don't just have to make stuff up that we think we remembered.
Don't need to share screenshots. So.
It's like, could somebody just play that video back and transcribe? But yeah, so above and beyond the in-depth study about the downtown core and council, also our new integrity commissioner, Mary Ellen Bench, had a presentation introducing her role, responsibilities, and what it was that her position would be at the within the municipality. The Road 2 tender from Union to Graham Side Road was also adopted, and so was Cottam and Ruthven Park playground equipment. So a lot of good things that were getting checked off that list. So, but yeah, as Kevin was saying, the construction at his house. Is there anything you can do about that, Mayor Santos?
Well, and can we speed them up?
Shake them up a little.
Can we speed them up and also have them working less? I want them done earlier in the day, but I also want it done faster. So can you change the laws of time.
Yes.
Right, so I don't have that kind of authority or power, despite some rumors. I certainly do keep it, we all keep an eye on the construction, and these infrastructure investments are so key right now with obviously the acknowledgement of the new school, making sure that corridor is going to be the safest one for anyone to be able to travel
The
upon.
sight lines are unbelievable.
Mr. Santos, are you aware that there was a tree at the corner of Kevin's lot that was just hacked and slashed?
It's
sight line
practically naked.
It is naked. It is a naked tree.
So,
It's gorgeous.
Nobody can get by right now to toss their doggy bags either, so that's a good thing.
Says who?
Thank
Oh.
no, you would. So is Jasperson going to be continuing to Road 2? Is that work behind the arena happening this year?
So that's the next proposal we're supposed to be receiving in the near future for council approval. The design is there. It's just a matter of waiting for the tenders to come through. So the intention is to have it basically all in place prior to the new school opening.
So probably then that work would be next year, the
I'm gonna-
actual construction.
Most likely 2022. But again, the timelines could change pretty quickly. So,
Right.
so we've included it as part of our overall proposals and included it within 2021 if necessary. But it's there as a placeholder.
And Division's going to be shutting down this year as well, right?
Division.
Just a portion by Hillview.
Yeah,
They're
by
just-
Hillview.
Yes, a couple. Yeah.
But that's a couple weeks where Division's going to be completely closed, right?
I don't know if we've approved the timeline on that one just yet, but
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, right, because it was just in the budget.
Right.
Yes.
North-south mayhem if you close down those
Well,
two
I was
arteries.
thinking, yeah, because if Jasperson's closed and Division's closed, like that's
They're all coming down Woody
Woody
Crest.
Crest.
yeah, Prince Albert.
Heck.
Yeah, it's Prince Albert, yeah. No, that was,
different kind of sign wars.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm so sick of the
Yeah,
sign
it's-
wars.
There's leaving. Thank you, Kingsville businesses, for not engaging full throttle in the sign wars.
We were about, so I'll say Leah Marie's, we were about to start. We had one set, and then when they were the next morning, everywhere, like
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can I tell you what it was going to be?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Asparagus is an aphrodisiac. # make love. # not sign wars.
But you didn't call anybody out.
He's anti-sign
I'm
war.
anti-sign wars.
Anti-sign
Make
war.
love, not sign wars.
I think you could probably still do that and get, at least one photo and
I might
a
get
Facebook
Yeah,
group.
we could probably get like one single like.
Kingsville High School got involved. Their first one was pretty good. Don't ask me what it was because I don't have it in front of me. But it was
Sounds great.
nice.
riveting.
So while we're on council news,
If only it was in the Reporter.
if only. While we're on council news, isn't next year an election year?
What?
Yeah, I believe so. Is it municipal election?
Does anyone around this table happen to know anything about
Has
it?
anybody been tapped to host an event for potential?
So we're gonna ask, just for the heck of it, where do you stand, Mayor Santos? Are you in? Are you out? Are you undecided?
Oh, don't give him the undecided.
Yeah.
You can't give
Oh
him
no,
that as an option.
we can give him that.
Here,
He sat with us for a whole hour here.
he's gonna look at us and he's like, well, I haven't made any decisions yet. I'm still thinking
Well, let
about
him
my
say
plans and. All right, go ahead, Nelson.
That sounded pretty good.
Don't let the radio guy do it for you.
Campaign manager.
I think anyone that's followed, obviously, my career in supporting the community and municipal politics, I've always tried to maintain, progress ahead of politicking. And I'm not in a political mode when we still have another full year and a half of municipal business to take care of. I want to keep my eye on the ball, keep focused on the issues and responding to the community, and keep making these investments. So my heart and soul are in this community, continue to work for the community.
Can you pass that along to some of the counselors?
Wow.
That's Kevin Black, ladies and gentlemen. That's Kevin Black.
It'd be something to let the commissioners speak to.
You know what? We can have multiple guests on this. We could just start going down the line. Larry, I think Larry would like to come in and discuss, Cottam related issues and whatnot. And, we can go down the list as popularity,
If we can get to 64th, then maybe.
64th. Yes, that'll be.
No, but we'd be remiss by not asking that question since we have him here.
Since we have him here.
We'll ask
So
him again in a year.
Yeah, when do you start thinking about it, Nelson? I mean, that's obviously it's the political. You have to give the political answer, but at what point, and even whether take this election cycle out of it, because obviously you've been mayor for a long time, so I'm sure that there's some other decisions that you want to think about. But in the past, at what point do you actually sit down and say, okay, is this something I want to do? Is it, close to that nomination time? Are you starting to think about it at the beginning of an election year? Like, at what point do you start formulating a plan?
Right. So typically before the last changes in the Municipal Act, and you talk about nomination day and when that period starts, you want to start thinking couple months before at minimum, in terms of, what's the commitments looking like, what's evolved, in the time. I mean, I can tell you this term has been like no other when you calculate the pandemic and the involvement and requirements. I mean, I'm at the municipal office pretty regularly, late hours. I mean, we talk about the full-time commitment that certainly this office now has. Put into play. And I don't know how I would have been able to manage being considered part-time, still had the full-time job with the newspaper. I mean, those are already starting to affect the timeline there. So it is a big consideration. I look at, what's the impact on family, what's the impact on the personal life. And again, obviously, I'm still looking for full-time engaged employment with the real world, that we always call.
I just recently rejoined the working world after my year of sabbatical, so I can appreciate that.
Right. But again, the work the municipality has been doing through the pandemic from our staff and departments, it's critical. And I feel I've been able to be supportive of both our staff, responsive to council concerns and questions, and certainly try to put the information out there of what we can do or what we can't do in terms of the pandemic level. So it's been a significantly increased responsibility for it.
Well, and one of the things I think, and we talked about it briefly, I think it was McLean's did a really good study on the impact that some of the vitriol on social media towards municipal politicians, and not just, obviously, there's some concerns locally with some of this, but this took it on a national scale where they spoke with municipal politicians in BC, Alberta, and the Maritimes, as well as a few spots in Ontario. And a lot of those politicians were saying that not only was it making them rethink their future, but they were also concerned that there would be good council candidates, qualified council candidates that may be watching what's happening and making a decision not to run based on some of the hatred. You can call, like, some of the comments, there is hatred being put forward to some municipal politicians.
And that's very legitimate. I mean, I know members of council, mayors who've stepped away from the role over this time because of that excessive attacks on them personally, whether it's reflective of reality or not. They become the targets, and it speaks to the conditions that we're living in. People are tired of being held back or not being able to do it, and the first ones that get in the line of fire are the first ones that are standing up or being there for the community. I'm not, I've not been one to shy away or not been recognized as a victim of that as well. It happens. We roll with it. We understand it is part of the role. It's getting to the point where it goes beyond boundaries, and that's the concern, and that's the impact that I think you're seeing, and others that will keep them from coming to run for municipal council, because they become easy targets, and when they're not called out on it, it's unfair, right? So it's we're human, we're some of us were born and raised in this community as well, and we care, and there's no hidden agendas when we're trying to raise our family here. Well, my goodness, right?
What? All those things I've read are untrue? You're telling me that what I read on the internet may not be truthful, Mayor Santos? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I do have a force field for festival event weekends to protect
Please
us
make
from
open
weather.
streets happen.
But...
Please make open streets happen. Use that power.
Well, it used to be that you would, and please, Nelson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think back, 2005, before, when in your early days of being mayor, you would walk into Tim Hortons or a local coffee shop and you'd get ribbed and you get it. But then you could leave and then you walk out the door and the old guys sitting around the coffee table that were yelling at you you don't have to listen to them anymore. But now they're in your face. You're seeing at home. You look at social media. You're getting
personal
texts.
in some cases.
It's
very personal, not just yourself included. Like any elected member, like it's poisonous vitriol, right? And I'm going to speak for myself. It has definitely influenced whether or not I participate publicly in operations of that sort, right? Because my intent wouldn't be any biased approach towards any personal agenda. It's more along the lines as the betterment of the community that I live in and my volunteer hours going towards so. But if I'm going to be openly criticized and heckled and threatened in some way, shape, or form, you think I'm going to do that again? I'm not jumping in front of that bus.
And that's up here, because now are we going to have the best representation that we can encourage to come forward?
Yeah. Only time will tell. But, well, thank you, Mayor Santos, for joining us on the 64th best podcast in Canada for political and town gossip and whatever else. Gary, did that guy ever get back to us? Yeah.
I did reach out to Brittany to see if
I was just going to say, instead of a social media comment of the week, we have an update with regards to the Britney Spears association with Mr. Kevin Black, not from Interscope Records.
Right. So I messaged her and she appears to have read it.
See?
Someone in her circle, at least.
What was the message?
Would you like to be on our podcast?
See? Now, if she gets on this podcast, we've also had Mayor Santos and Britney Spears. You're in pretty rare air.
At least 63rd then.
60. Maybe let's aspire.
Not to take anything away from Kristen Kennedy and Sebastian Schwartz either.
No, but listen, we're climbing. Like the criteria, it's going to get pretty strict.
I was actually looking for a comment of the week, and then I got sad.
Yeah.
So I started reading the comments too much. I'm like, I just want to cry. And then I stopped.
Let's just hope Brittany gets back to you. Well, I'd like to shout out again our sponsor for the podcast, Kingsville Brewery. Again, go to their website, kingsvillebrewery.com, to order takeout for the tap house, or you can have beer delivered free in Essex County. Again, cheers to the everyday adventure. Thank you, Kingsville Brewery. Again, thank you, Mayor Santos. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Again, reach out to us if you've got any comments, complaints, situations, whatever it is, thatkingsvillepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, Gary Glass, for production on this. We'll see you next time.